Thank you.
Good.
Nice to see you, Lisa.
Thank you. Same here. Of course, as you might be able to guess by my background, we're going to be talking about Perihelion. Roberta's book is coming out this month, around the end of the month, and we're really excited about it. And this is Roberta's debut poetry book, so that's very exciting.
Really exciting.
Yes. So, Roberta, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background. What do you do with life?
Well, right now I'm teaching biology at a state prison for youth, and I've done it previously at a state prison for incarcerated students who are not youth, and I enjoyed doing that, going inside and providing people opportunities to learn. And I've taught at Temple University, which is in Philadelphia, and at Rowan University, which is in South Jersey, since about 2007.
Um,
Really enjoy teaching, working with my students. Although we don't do much regarding poetry, we do get a chance to write and to talk and to learn. And prior to teaching, I worked in a pharmaceutical for about 15 years. And I have a science background, and some of my poems do relate to things in science using some terminology, but it's accessible to people. And I love writing. I love writing poetry. I love writing about science. I love communicating with people. I love teaching writing. And I'm in a good point in my life. And I'm thrilled that at this point where things are really good, I'm also producing a book. Couldn't be
Yes,
better. Could not be better.
wonderful,
I'm
wonderful.
grateful to the people who are following me on Instagram and all of the poetry groups I belong to who have been so supportive and helpful. And I think that this book, in large part, is a product of many conversations about poetry.
One of the things that I noticed with your poetry is that it has been well edited. One of my roles, as a publisher is basically do light edits. I don't do heavy duty edits. And as you've known, because we've worked together closely on yours, and there was very little that I had to really do anything with. And I thought, well, that's probably helpful that she's been in a very wonderful critique group with, Elliot Rubin and Bill Baker and I mean Bill Waldorf, I'm sorry. And I always use Baker because he's a baker. And so you in Sarfraz Ahmed, name some of them that I know that are in the
So
group.
many, so many people. It would take the rest of this interview just to name everybody present and past.
Exactly.
It has influenced me not just in terms of critiquing my poetry, but also hearing their subjects, their observations, their poetic styles, their way of reading. It all came together, comes together, on a weekly basis. Doug Stuber, um, all of these people have had an influence on me.
Yes.
Hopefully, possibly, I've also had an influence on them.
Yeah, it goes both ways, that's for sure. Absolutely. Part of that whole process is the giving and taking and making the most of that situation.
And
I've
seeing,
noticed.
also seeing people's development, which as a teacher, I'm always interested in seeing my students develop their understanding, their ability to describe their observations. And also, when you're in a poetry group over time, you really get a chance to see people's development. And it's really a great experience.
Yes. Well, I think it's really absolutely the coolest thing that you're working with these kids to help them. It may give them an opportunity to seek, something in your field, to develop more understanding and to have somebody that's compassionate like you are to work with them. Um, may help them to feel like they have that possibility in life because when you're in a detention type situation, sometimes it's hard to feel, excited and enthused about, life and to have caring teacher who, means to really seriously develop a life for their students. I think that's exceptional and wonderful. And I really praise you for that because it takes a certain talent, certain skill to be able to work with a population that has been kind of up against the wall, so to speak. So kudos to you for your outreach with the students.
Thank you.
Yes. You know, one of the often things I often wonder about when people are involved with poetry is where they want to go with it, how do they want to develop it? What kind of ideas are you having about where you want to go with your poetry? You've managed to put together this beautiful book, and I happen to know you have more things going on. And so what's your ideal plan for your poetry?
I have a lot of thoughts about my poetry. I've in my background, I've always read poetry.
Mhm.
Whether or not I was focused as I am now on writing and on writing on a regular basis, which is also something the groups do for me,
Mhm.
help me get a discipline in terms of poetry in my life. Um, I started to say I would like to be able to write longer poems. Um, I think when you're reading to a group of necessity, you don't want to be reading for like 5 minutes. It's kind of environment where a shorter poem might be more appreciated. But I would like to learn how to write longer poetry, to be more patient with myself, to see what else is there.
Right.
Instead of using this framework, which has been a successful framework for me and for others, I'd like to learn to kind of expand upon it. I've been reading some poems that are longer and try to figure out what it takes to, be patient with yourself or have the discipline or understand the poetic forms, let's say, to a greater extent than I do.
Right.
And also to reach out to write the kind of poetry that might be very well appreciated in an open mic. Because in going through my poems, there are some that are very conducive to an open mic. In fact, there's one that my daughter worked on. It's in the collection, and she composed a piece, on guitar that accompanies the poem, which she sings as a song. And thinking about doing that.
And I went to the doctor, that one. I
Went to the
love that
doctor.
piece, that
That
the way
was a
she put
fun,
that.
a fun poem to write, and she did such a great job with it.
Yeah. And it kind of, that particular poem kind of has is a serious tone to it, but a little humorous tone to it, and a relatable tone to it.
People appreciate that, and also trying to include um, going back over the poem, seeing whether anything would work as a chorus. Because when you're reading in the open mic, repetition is good, and if there's a chorus, people feel more like involved in it. I
Yeah,
can
I
I
think
noticed
so.
that,
We pick up on the rhythm of it. Yeah.
right? And they recognize, oh, then there's going to be a chorus, and they
Mhm.
recognize that. I did a reading in Medford, Massachusetts, and I read a couple of poems that had a chorus, and they were well received.
Yes. I think, and as a general theme, especially when you're doing a reading, that is very popular to have something that has that, you can feel that music in it, rhythm in it. A good friend of mine who has actually critiqued some of my work, um, has often said, you want a poem to kind of dance when you
Good.
read it.
That's a good way of describing it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
I
when you're
think,
reading, you do feel like people, especially when there's a chorus or shorter lines or rhyme, you do feel like people are like kind of with it. Especially if you're in a bar and they're drinking and they hear you repeating something, they look at you. Oh yeah, I heard
You got their attention.
that.
Might be a good place. I think some open mics are, in bars, and I think they're actually kind of popular, in that respect. So, you might have some new fans there. You never know, right? Carry a few books with you. You never know where you might find
I'll
an
definitely
interesting
be doing
person,
that. Postcards, I'll be doing that.
you know. Um, when did you start writing poetry?
Um, I think I've always written poetry. When I was in when I was in elementary school, I had poems in the little digest that they produced, literary digest. So I think I've always written poetry.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, I also started, very young, and my first published poetry was in sixth grade. We did an anthology of poetry our class did. And it was
Right.
all Asian forms of poetry. So I'm still a big fan of short poems and the haiku and stuff like
Yeah.
that and different ones like that. And then Susie Box got me really going again with that, with her I Write Her site, and she has a lot of haiku and senryu and got me started on some challenges there. As he published my poems in her the short of it series, so it's wonderful. Roberta, since we did talk about went to the doctor, would you like to read that poem for us?
This poem is called I Went to the Doctor. I went to the doctor. He said, "You got a hole in your head that's making you manic. Get back to basics. Eat only organic." Sprung me out of asylum, dosed with Klonopin and Xanax. My priest said I need religion. So I tried to find myself in Islam. Then, close to complete collapse, my mental health in pieces, I gave myself to Jesus, afraid to have a relapse, or worse, wind up in prison. Almost free of substance, save the occasional indulgence. I'm vaxxed up, living healthy, avoiding notoriety, jazzed on open mic poetry. I went to the doctor. He said, "You got a hole in your head that's making you manic. Get back to basics. Eat only organic."
Thank you, Roberta. Beautiful.
It was
I
a
love
fun
that.
poem.
It
Fun
is a
poem to
fun
write.
poem. So tell me about Perihelion. What brought that poem to your heart
That
and to the cover of the book?
that might be it might be my favorite poem. And I remember, in fact, I was discussing it with my husband Carl. We were walking in a park, and it was that park in the winter that made me think about perihelion because it was around the new year. And perihelion, it means around the sun, but it's been taken to mean around the beginning of the year when their days get to be longer. So I was walking in the park in my snow boots and in my down parka, and our feet were crunching in the snow. And I noticed that there were these spiky seed arrows that we were pushing down into the snow, and they were kind of leaving a halo around them when they disappeared. And I thought, oh, that would be a nice observation to put into a poem. And then it kind of generated sometimes an observation like that. If you're kind of tuned into your poetic impulse, an observation like that will generate more observations and kind of gel into a poem or congeal into a poem. And that's the way Perihelion worked.
Yeah. And I love the cover design, and it pulls in all the aspects of the poem.
It was so amazing that I don't know much about illustration, but I understand the cover of a book is really something that can draw somebody in. So I made some small suggestions to the illustrator about the poem, and she came up with an amazing illustration. Much I couldn't have done it, obviously, and I don't know whether I imagined that it would be this evocative in me anyway of the poem, and hopefully it will draw people in. if they see it.
Yeah, shout out to Kelly Jackson, and
Kelly
she's
Jackson,
wonderful.
she worked with me, and she was very responsive to my ideas, and she we worked. It was a collaboration, you, me, and her. It was very nice to do that.
I think it helps to have the poem in front of you to kind of pull it together for a cover. And, once she was able to see the texting, in the poem, it's like it all kind of started working with her wonderful brain. I'm amazed with because she can take an idea and just do some beautiful things with them.
She did quite well there, and there are two other illustrations within the book
Yes,
of other poems, and similarly, even though they're not color, they also are, and the black and white works quite well.
it does.
And again, she did a fantastic job.
Actually, I think that the black and white, but the two that are inside the book actually emphasizes them better, shows them better than if they were in
Mhm.
color.
Right.
And
They work quite well with the poems. It's nice to have them in there.
if anybody wants to see them, well, we just have to buy the book, right?
That's right.
Would you like to read Perihelion? I have it ready to pop up on the screen.
Sure, sure. It's a poem I really like. Maybe not suitable for musical adaptation, but it's a poem I like and I like reading.
It's suitable for reading. Can you
Yeah,
see
I've
the
read it.
full poem?
I did read it. That's one of the ones I read in Medford, Mass. And I didn't have the postcards then, but next time I read in Boston, I'll have them. Called Perihelion. The corkscrew tendril hugs the branch, teaching tenacity to spiky seed arrows sunk in snow and blind night crawlers, deep burrowed in streams of translucent pebbles. A largo of forgetting builds to a wintry cadenza, while cardinals roost in dense evergreens. Force solitary strands of communion through the latticework of time. Decide which notes to mute or sustain, for better or worse, your choice to make, to people this pilotless planet. Camera eyes envision a sand dune with a semblance of snow in a glitter globe, where a photograph of a photograph in a locket holds a memory tethered by a single hair. Decide which notes to mute or sustain, for better or worse, your choice to make, to people this pilotless planet.
Thank you. Excellent. I love that poem.
It's not, maybe it's a little bit too much, too egotistic to imagine this poem included in some kind of collection where people will read it. Not my collection, but another collection of poems that are recognized for their um, ability, competence, evocativeness. I think that this work would be one of mine, one of my best.
Yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree with that.
Thank you.
Um, I want to tell you that, and you're the first person to be told this. I selected my 6 people. Every year we can select 6 people for the pushcart nomination. And your poem, Passion Sandwich, has been selected as a nominated pushcart poem. So congratulations.
There's a great story. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I'm honored. There's a great story behind the Pashtun sandwich because in 2020, I volunteered to help vaccinate the Afghan refugees who were brought over and housed at the Joint Base not too far from my home. And they were provided vaccinations, like not just COVID, but and there were children, they hadn't been vaccinated against measles or chicken pox or any of those vaccinations that are the typical childhood vaccinations. So we were, helping them, leading them to where they would have the doctors and paramedics vaccinate them. And I hadn't been vaccinated, so I was like all garbed up and a little bit worried about exposure. And then there was some. I was eating my lunch, and there were these children that like looking at me, and there was a language barrier. They were looking at me, so I took my sandwich and I put it on the chair next to me, and I turned away and pretended to do something else. And there was a little girl, and she picked it up, and then she broke it in half, and then there were three little girls eating this sandwich. And I wish I had my camera. It was the cutest thing. They were wearing these beautiful, outfits, and they were like talking and eating this peanut butter sandwich. It's fun.
Oh, that's such a nice story behind that.
It was really funny.
Yes. Is there anything I haven't asked you about, Roberta, that you'd like to share?
Um, well, my son is also a poet. He writes really beautiful poetry, and I have a son and a daughter and two grandchildren. And maybe that's all I would want to say about myself, except I hope they continue to write. And this has been a great opportunity for me.
Yeah. Has your son published his work?
Well, he published his master's thesis, but hasn't published any work. Not yet.
Yeah, I heard that not yet part, so it's coming. Roberta, it's been wonderful to talk with you today. I really appreciate your coming on here. And I wish you the best. Keep writing that poetry. You do it beautifully.
This is a wonderful opportunity for me, and it's great to talk to you. I hope we get a chance to meet in person someday.
That would be wonderful. You never know. Small world.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I went to the doctor, he said, "You've got a hole in your head that's making you manic. Get back to basics, eat only organic." Spun me out of asylum, dosed with Clonopin and Xanax. My priest said I need religion, so I tried to find myself in Islam. I went to the doctor, I went to the doctor, I went to the doctor, I went to the doctor. Then close to complete collapse, my mental health was in pieces. I gave myself to Jesus, afraid to have a relapse or wind up in prison. Almost free of substance, save the occasional indulgence. I'm vaxxed up, living healthy, avoiding notoriety, jazzed up on open mic poetry. I went to the doctor, I went to the doctor, I went to the doctor, I went to the doctor.